Welcome to one of the highest damage per minute vehicles at tier 8. This is the Spatuk TVP, and this tank is literally one of the vehicles that I feel like doesn't get enough credit within the game because it has super high DPM. But what's even better about this tank right now is that you can actually pick up this one for completely free. So today we're going to have a look at how you can do it, and of course it's part of the contract section, and we're going to have a look at what this tank is actually like, whether you want to actually go ahead and pick this one up as your contract, since there are a couple of others that you can currently pick up. So the first bit about this tank is that it is available as part of the contract section. You can find it in the challenges tab and then use your buttons to move over to this page, and then you'll find the actual contract right here, and then you can sign the contract in order to be able to pick up this tank. And once you do that, you will then start working towards all of the missions that include getting XP and basically placing in various different positions on the team, getting damage and getting shots in the game. But the Spatuk TVP, of course, in order to actually fully get this vehicle, you're going to need in the region of about 600,000 XP over the entire operation. So you have 56 days to complete this, which means about 10,000 XP per day, roughly, as we're going at this moment in time, and maybe slightly more. You're looking probably at about 13,000 a day if you were to start right now. Obviously, XP boosts do actually count towards these operations, so you can get that considerably quicker if you do use your XP boost, but that's entirely down to you. And primarily, I would be doing all of these contracts when grinding through some of the tech tree tanks that I'm playing and using some of my XP boosts on those vehicles, specifically to get through as many tank lines at the same time as actually being able to pick up this tank, which is brilliant. And of course, you're getting a free premium tank alongside some of the other season challenges that we've currently got at this moment in time. Of course, with the original 3 that we've got running at the moment, and then we've got the new season that's coming out tomorrow when we're recording this video. Obviously, if you're watching this in the future, you might have a different set of challenges that are also running alongside. But the Spatuk TVP 100, why is it so good? Well, it is down to the fact that this tank's base damage per minute is 3,500, which puts it up there with some of the highest. I'm talking top 5 vehicles, maybe even top 3 vehicles at tier 8 in terms of how much damage it can deal. And the tanks that are the top are actually non-turreted tank destroyers that feature guns that are essentially really annoying to actually use when it comes to being quite flexible. This actually gets a fully traversable turret and also goes 55 kilometers an hour. It doesn't get any armor when it comes to its armor model, but it is very fast. And so if you can mobilize around the map, you can make this work really well. And certainly in those positions where you find someone comes up from behind you or whatever, you can turn a lot quicker and actually use that turret that things like, for example, the Soviet tank destroyers with lower alpha but super high DPM just don't possibly get. So obviously when you talk about a tank like this, in order to get the most out of its damage per minute, you're going to be wanting all of the damage per minute perks, and that's where advanced loader comes into the question. We've also got advanced concealment, so we can remain undetected when we're playing this tank, and it's going to be really nice to have. And then we've got advanced reload. Now, very rarely do I use advanced reload on any of my tanks, but this one actually has a point to using advanced reload, which is that when you're using the vehicle, it has HESH rounds that have 100 pen, which is really good. And the difference between its standard round and the HESH round is that, yes, you sacrifice the penetration, however, you do get an extra 170 damage with these HESH rounds, which almost doubles the damage that you can deal. Well, about 1.75 times if we're being specific. I know someone out there is probably going to say that, but either way, it is a ton more damage, and that means that the damage per minute that we have when you look at the statistics of the vehicle is actually going to be significantly higher when you can use those HESH rounds. And 100 penetration in tier 8 games and games where you're playing up against lower tier vehicles, 100 pen can pen a lot of tier 6s, it can pen a lot of tier 7s, and it can pen a lot of tier 8s if you find them in the side or you find the rear of tanks. And yeah, you can just boost up damage per minute. So being able to flick between the rounds with advanced reload without costing my reload is really nice. But potentially I would swap this out, to be honest, with advanced optics, depending on kind of how you view this sort of tank, and of course whether you want the extra view range to get some spotting damage. However, the view range to still concealment's very good with this tank. You could just make it even better, and then understand that maybe sometimes you're just going to have to swap rounds, costing you your reload. But yeah, I'm really like this vehicle. It isn't for everyone, and it's certainly not a tank that I feel like is super overpowered, because it is limited in its armor and also in the gun depression that this tank gets. 6 degrees, but because it's very tall, the vehicle can find it very awkward in some positions to get that gun working, especially if there's any kind of ridge line. So just be aware of that if you're wanting to go for this tank, thinking it's going to be an all-round kind of tank able to be used in every single position in the game. It just isn't that, but it definitely is a tank that is very good if you know how to relocate, and I think it's going to be good to teach people how to relocate as a premium tank. And remember, it's a premium tank, so you earn a ton of silver when you play this vehicle, and because the standard rounds of this tank have 270 pen, yes, 270 pen on a tier 8 tank destroyer, yeah, you don't need very many premium rounds in this vehicle because you can pen almost everything with your standard rounds. So be aware of that. You really do not need those premium rounds. And even if you do, you've got 330 pen with those premium rounds. 330 pen on a tier 8 tank able to go through the front of the upper plates of some tier 10 heavy tanks is absolutely crazy. And so basically, if you're bouncing off of things, it's probably because you aim bad or you auto aim someone and maybe you didn't aim 100%. Maybe RNG kicks you off sometimes, but at the same time, this tank is very powerful when it comes to its main armament, and it is the key selling point of this vehicle. But luckily you don't have to be sold on it since it is free in the contracts right now. But either way, the Spartuk TVP 100, I really enjoy it, but let's actually see what it's like in the actual game. Now then, if we're talking about a game that really sums up what the Spartuk can do, then this one is definitely it. It doesn't only feature how good the tank is when it's used properly, but also how real fun it can be as well, because at the end of the day, World of Tanks, you can play loads of overpowered tanks. There's loads of them. There's some tanks that aren't as good but can be really fun, and there are some tanks that are just utter garbage and you want to throw your head into the trash bin. But of course, the Spartuk is definitely a combination of being quite competitive alongside being a ton of fun to play, because you have the option to load those Hesh rounds which deal a ton more damage, and that is really what this tank is all about. And of course, trying out different things, learning some new mechanics and stuff like that is definitely going to help you out in that regard. But of course, you see me here just finding a quick shot on the rover. Can we get it? Yes, we can, lucky. But of course, you have to fire, and if you do fire, sometimes it does actually work. But at this point, I'm just moving up to this position up here. You can get up here. It's quite nice at the beginning to counter some of those light tanks like the T-71 and of course the rover that we finished off. So if you're wanting a decent position at the start of the game, not during the end of the game, this one is actually pretty decent. But unfortunately for the Mantis, he is about to find out what the Spartuk can do. You can see me just trying to go for the tracking shots on the Mantis here. Now, it appeared like he did repair his tracks twice there. Now, I'm not entirely sure, as we did track him once and then we tracked him again. Maybe he had 2 repair kits, I don't know. But I would think it very unlikely. Maybe he just had really good repair speed on the first one. But either way, we're up to 667 damage and we've taken out 1 tank already. But with the amount of ammunition that this tank gets alongside the reload speed of the tank, it's actually quite a nice combination, because you don't feel like you have to hold your shot sometimes, and you can go for those bit more risky shells. You're really quick at reloading, so it doesn't matter all too much. You can see me just trying to get this Mantis out the game. He's trying to YOLO one of my teammates. We don't like that at all, so he can go back to the garage. No YOLOing in this game. But with that being said, we've picked up a second enemy within this game with 1350 damage. You can see how quickly it can tear people apart. And here we have a T-71 who's kind of on the other side of the map. I wasn't sure whether he was going to come towards our base, so just pre-aiming it in case he did. Doesn't look like he wanted to in the end. But at this point, this is where you actually move from that position right there. Our team have certainly won the kind of, I guess, eastern side of the map down by the cliff. So it's time for us to actually go in and try and do something, which means even if we lose some of our hit points, it's absolutely fine because we have 1150 to trade, and often even if we get hit by this T-34-3 a couple times, we're going to be able to take him out because of purely the damage per minute of this vehicle. And here we go, if we can surprise him, we put one in. Now we need to probably actually aim, hopefully. Well, I say that, but of course the auto aim meta just coming off quite well. Unlikely we'll bounce off of this guy. I'm kind of a bit worried that he'll hit me again. He doesn't get that opportunity, and we finish him off for the third enemy of this game. So you can see what happens when you just go in. You can get so much damage, and people like that just cannot contend with you because you don't bounce off of them, and you're just constantly hitting them for a very, very decent amount of damage. But of course, 2000 damage is an okay game. You know, everyone would be okay with having 2k damage in the game, but we want to get even more. So what do we do here? Well, we find ourselves an SU-130 who I'm happy to take a hit from if he does so actually manage to get hit into us. He then derps it into the ground, which is brilliant for me because now we put one into him. We then got a M12 who we fire a HE round into, and we find ourselves a Crusader who we also fire a HE round into. So there you go, 3 enemies taken out within about half a second, or what seems like half a second anyway. But we coming down here, oh gosh, that could have ended very, very badly. And then we, you know, take the auto aim to the next level, finish off the OI. Can we get the enemy on the T-34-88? And yes, we can. That was 5 enemies within the space of about 20 seconds or so. Yeah, very, very quick firing this tank is, and you can pull off 8 kills from 3 within that 20-second period, really. Yeah, a really, really fun game, and showcases what this tank can do if you do put yourself in those sorts of situations, both using the HE and HESH rounds, as well as the standard rounds when you need to, when you find those heavily armoured vehicles. And it feels really, really rewarding when you do use this vehicle, which I think is a big thing for playing World of Tanks. But of course, that isn't everything when it comes to playing World of Tanks. You have to see what the kind of worst games are going to actually be like when you're in a matchup that isn't so good, and when you are having to face off against tier 9 and higher tier vehicles. So that's what we're going to have a look at now. And so with the Spatuk, obviously when you don't have any armor and you don't have particularly the best health point pool, 1100 is definitely on the very low side, and essentially means that you can be 3-shot by any tier 8 heavy, and certainly any tier 9 heavy. You might even have the option to 2-shot you, so you want to make sure that you do remain undetected, which is why we're pushing down a few trees here. Just provide cover, if not for now, for later on in the game when we do have to find a bit more of a secure position where essentially we can pull back to and remain hidden. And that's what you want to do in the game. Think about the long term, not just the short term, and somehow we managed to hit the waffle on the move there. No idea how that actually happened, but we do try and go for this waffle. I'm going to knock down that area over there. We get spotted, so I'm a bit hesitant to just be here. We try and go for a blind fire, but it doesn't look like we're actually able to hit him. But we might as well go over to here. Can we see them? No, not by the looks of it. I'm waiting just a second, but at this point, it's time to move on in this game. Yeah, staying and waiting around in the Spatuk is just a way to just end up having worse results. If you kind of sit back on your laurels just trying to snipe and hope people push into you, you're going to end up not getting enough damage throughout the game. Because although it has really amazing damage per minute, the problem with this vehicle is that it has such a low alpha damage in general that you do have to kind of go sometimes. And you can see here we're going to go for an auto aim. You do have to go for them. We hit him once there. and then of course we can move up into the middle position. Hopefully we don't get hit by anyone, and there we go. Now we're into a much better spot to get some consistent damage within this game. So here's an Oho who we managed to hit with our heat rounds. 330 pen is crazy. We get kind of lucky not to actually get penned by the Oho there, but at the same time it looked like he flicked onto us, so you know, maybe he hit our tracks or something. But with 330 heat pen, it's all over for the turret of the Oho. There's nothing really he can do unless we hit the spaced armored mantler. Brilliant, love to see it. But hopefully we can get a couple more, maybe 1 or 2 more shots into the Oho. Oh no, the artillery finishes him off, and there goes our chances of that. But at this point, game is looking almost done, and we're going to have to try and get a bit more damage since we're only on 900. But don't worry, we're in a Spatuk, which doesn't care whether you're only on 900 at the end of the game. As long as you've got someone on some hit points, you'll be able to take him out pretty quickly. So I'm going to go for this waffle, might as well. We get 1 shot into him, and then this ST1 looks like he may want to give us a little bit of damage in this game. So I can take 1 hit from this guy consistently. Taking 2 hits is not possible. He could take us out quite easily, so we want to make sure that we don't get hit. We hit him once with the first one, and then a T-54 is also here who we put 1 into, and hopefully we can get another one in. He's not aiming for us, he's going for someone else, but we put 1 more into him. Can we get the final one? Yes, we can. This is where it's all about. We realise that there's actually a heavy down here, which is a Tiger 2, and he's on full health, but how long for? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So obviously this tank is a super support vehicle. However, at this point in the game we are going to win. I want the damage, so let's go in. We use our speed, which is amazing, to get around behind him, and then it's just a case of waiting for our reload every single time, putting 1 into the side of the turret. This guy on our team is looking around. We put 1 more into him, and then it's game, set, a match for the enemy team, with us on 2 enemies taken out with nearly 3,000 damage in a game which was pretty easy from the looks of it. And so you can see, even in the top tier games, you're still able to do what you need to do and come away with a decent result. So in terms of how I rate this vehicle, I actually really enjoy this tank. I find it fun. It has something novel to it with the Hesh rounds, and of course it offers something a little bit different to your traditional high DPM tanks, which are hull locked and cannot, you know, have a turret to be able to turn around. So this tank makes use of all of those things, and I think overall a very, very fun tank. A competitive tank to a degree, but definitely not the best TD at tier 8, but still a really good one. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already and you want to see some more, but make sure if you have enjoyed this one that you try and check out some of the other videos in the gameplay and tank reviews playlist that we've got on screen right here. Beware that there are going to be a ton of tanks in that playlist, so I'm sure you won't watch all of them, but if you have, that is absolutely mental. But other than that, I will see you in the next one.